Welcome to Adventures in Solitaire.
Today we'll be discussing Role Player. So what is Role Player about? Role Player is a card and dice drafting game with a medieval role-playing feel. The goal of Role Player is to make the perfect role-playing character. So when we say perfect role-playing character, I think a lot of people think that, well, you know, at least if you're familiar with, say, D20 systems, your typical maximum starting attribute is 18, depending on modifications, and that you would think that that might be perfect. But each character has some very specific requirements to be like what it is to be like that character. Say a cleric who's an arbiter and is exonerated, and you're trying to make a character that kind of fits that archetype for what that would be. You do have random draws every turn throughout the game. So every turn you'll draw up a certain number of cards in a tableau. And of course, so that's your drafting, but you'll also be rolling dice as well, and then you'll be placing them on initiative cards based on the value that was rolled. As you're trying to get the right scores for the right dice in the right place on your character card, you're going to find that some of these cards and even the dice themselves can change how you play, as well as if you're playing against another player. You'll find that your strategies and what you're trying to do can change. You may find at one point you were going down a certain path, but you need to kind of diverge a little bit in your strategy. Overall, your main strategy will be the same, but there are some little moment-to-moment things which will kind of may change that up a little bit. For the solo experience, which is why we're here, you do have a really basic AI that will randomly kind of pick, well, not semi, it will, randomly pick which card from the tableau that it's going to rob from you, and that'll depend on what your initiative is. And sometimes it hurts you, sometimes it doesn't. It's not smart. It's not going to pick the card that you would need and take that from you like a normal player might. So it's a little bit more lenient there. And then the goal of the solo game is to beat your prior score. And then in the rule book, it has a section in the back where it will tell you how you scored. I think now would be a good time to talk about the basic rules of the game. This won't be a complete in-depth overview of the rules. I think that's something we can probably do in another video, but I can quickly cover the basic idea of how it's played. A typical setup for Role Player starting afresh will look something like this. You'll have had a random race, a random class, a random backstory. You'll have a random alignment. When you first start out, both players will reach into their die bag and they will pull out 6 dice. If they pull out more than 6 dice, they re-roll. If they pull out less than 6 dice, then they just draw what they're missing. So from here, when you first start, you'll put your dice in your slots according to what your character needs. For example, this character needs a dexterity between 16 to 17, and so either 16 or a 17 would work. If it was between 16 to 18, anything from 16 clear on up to 18 would work. But we have some that are specific, like this wisdom. I need to get 18 there. So with wisdom, I would definitely want to put a 6 there, because it's going to take 3 6s to make that work normally. And we'll talk about that normally later. So once you have and I'm just setting these in here for now for sake of time constraints, but once you've got these set up, where both players have this set up, you'll have a starting player. By the way, both players do start with 5 gold. Also, these gold dice are worth 2 gold whenever they're placed in your card, and that does count, if I remember right, it does count when you're creating your character. Once you have your dice set up on your card, you'll have a starting character. They will randomly pull from a pool of, the pool of dice in a dice bag, which, by the way, that dice bag is huge. I don't know how many games I have had a dice bag where I'm sitting here like trying to get my hand in that bag and trying to do something with it or shuffle things around so I don't accidentally pull the chit or whatever I put in there out again, you know. So, but this thing is just massive. I could fit 2 of my hands in there easily, probably 3 if I pushed it. But it's just really great, to the point that I'm probably going to find another way to store these dice just so I can use that again or what have you. So you'll roll the dice, and then in order from lowest to highest, you'll put these. In the case of a matching situation, it's up to the player's turn for who it is to put these down. You'll then choose which die you need, and again, it's going to be based on your needs of your character, and sometimes even the needs of the other player. You may choose to hurt yourself a little or hurt them a lot. They may need this 1 die more than you need another. So let's say that I'm here, I'm ready to pick my dice, it's my turn. If I pick the first one, what that allows me to do is it guarantees me that I will be able to purchase or sell from the market offer. If I go second, well, I'm going to have to hope that my opponent doesn't choose the first one and gets ahead of me on that. If I choose the second, I also get a gold that I get to put in my stash there. So why would, beyond these numbers you're trying to hit, why do these colors matter? Well, these colors matter because if you look here in this backstory, we have very specific colors. We also have a white cube here indicating the color for my class. So if one of these dice were white, at the end of in-game scoring, I get a point for every die that matches my color. This, I get points based on how many dice of these colors are in these correct slots. So in strength, I would need a blue here. In dex, I would need a black here, and so on and so forth. So that if I had all of them, I would net 6 points. But if I had 3 of them, I would only net 1 point. And that's shown here on the exonerated card. It shows you exactly how many you score, and it shows those placement of the dice. And just in case, because I don't know how clear it would be on your screen, these are those numbers that I would need to hit for my dice in each row. So for strength, I would need 3 dice totaling between 14 to 15 on this row. If I cleared that, I would net 2 points for that card. Your alignment card, you want to try and make sure your alignment is somewhere in here, preferably here, and certainly not over here. And so when you start out, your alignment's going to start right there in the center, and you will place a little white cube right there in the center to indicate that that's where you're starting. And there are some mechanics in the game that will shift your alignment up, down, left, or right along that card. So let's talk about some of those mechanics. If you look at, and I'm going to get another card so I don't have to lift this board off the table. If you look at the cards, you will see that there are these little action symbols, and they all mean different things, from flipping a die to its opposite side, to swapping one die for another, to increasing or decreasing a die's value. Remember, we're trying to get it exact, and if our numbers are too high for our class card, we might need to reduce the die value if we can't do one of these others to fix it. Or you can re-roll a die, or you can shift your alignment up, down, left, or right in just one space in one direction, or you can get a one-turn discount of 1 gold off of anything in the market area. So the other thing to keep in mind is that some of these characters have, give me just a moment. Some of these characters have some adjustments to their stats. As this orc, he's very strong, he's going to get a +2. He's not so smart though. He's going to get a -2. So you have to kind of keep that in mind with your die rolls. If he got the typical orcish warrior type class, he might need an 18 exact. And if you got 666 for the 18, or you got maybe even you got 17 on these totals, that +2 would push you over an 18 strength. So you have to keep those in mind as well. So after you have chosen which die you want, say I went with a 3 because it's the highest, and then I decided for whatever reason I wanted to put it here, the next player would take their turn. And they would take, since they know that they're going to go first no matter what, let's say they go for that, they collect their gold. And then from there, because they would be going first, they would choose a card, and on their turn, you can do one of two things. You can choose to purchase a card for its value, or you can sell it and get 2 gold. And then you permanently remove it from the game. Once everyone has purchased or sold the cards that they're going to sell, they will then you'll then have you'll always have an extra, and you'll take that extra and you'll put it in the discard pile. That discard pile is important because there are some mechanics in the game from some of these cards that will let you work with the discard, but you won't ever be able to work with cards that have been sold. Those are permanently removed from that current game. There are a few different types of cards in the game. You'll have weapons, and you can only have 2 hands worth of weapons, either one 2-handed weapon or 2 one-handed weapons that you're dual wield, and they will typically just change the mechanics of how you're playing the game. Some of them, just a couple of them, will alter in-game scoring. Armor, it really is just there for collecting an armor set. If you collect all of an armor set, you get a bigger score. If you are of that same class and you collect all the armor set, you get even a bigger score, but I think just 1 point though, but it's still a point. Different armor sets have different amounts of armor. Some of the hardest ones have about 5, I think. 5 that you have to collect, and the smallest one, I think, you have to have 3 that you have to collect for that armor. You also have traits that are traits down here that you'll put cards down here, and that's used for in-game scoring. And you'll have skills that can be used turn over turn. There is some limitation. You can use as many skills as you want every turn, but you can only ready at the beginning of a turn, ready 1 skill per turn. So if you had 5 skills and you use them all, you would have to wait quite a while, and you only have as many turns as there are dice to place, because you'll be getting 1 die per turn. So there's a little bit more to it, but towards we can cover that in another video in more detail. But this card here is the scoring mechanic, and you'll simply take your white cube and you'll just kind of move it along as you go through the rules for scoring, which are in the rule book and in less fine detail right here at the bottom of your card. All right. So let's talk a little bit about some of my thoughts about role player. Primarily, it's just a solitaire experience. It can kind of feel at times, and I seem to have this problem with a lot of games, in that it can kind of feel like the theme gets lost. I mean, I think they did a really good job with some of the cards and some of the effects, and that it kind of makes sense on what they do. But overall, it feels like I'm really just mainly concerned about numbers, and there's so many different moving parts going on, especially if you have an opponent, that you're trying to keep track of to maximize your in-game scoring. It just really becomes about the data. But having said that, regardless of what skin or theme we have on this game, and fantasy is great to have, the game's great. It's fast. I play with my fiance, and she loves it. It's quickly rose to become one of our favorite games, especially because it's so easy to set up. It's got a small footprint, and we play in about 30 minutes. 30 minutes, so it's pretty good. You do get a pretty good feeling of progression over the short term. You even though it's a 30-minute session, you do feel like you're making progress and seeing those gains for the actions and strategies that you try to work out. It does feel very, very puzzling. So having said that, there are multiple expansions available for it. I don't have any of them. I'm actually pretty good with the base game. A lot of games that I have, I immediately want to kind of move in and I want to get more content. I looked at some of the expansions and I really kind of like with what I have here. If you are thinking about getting this, and it is about $40 to $50, maybe you're a little bit on the edge, you can go and check out Tabletopia. I believe it's free to sign up, and last time I checked, they had the ability to play this solo on Tabletopia with the full random setup already done for you. You don't have to set it all up. You do need to know the rules, but you can play it. And I've done that myself before. I gotten a copy and it sold me. The gameplay on Tabletopia sold me, and that's really rare. Usually that doesn't happen. So by the time I've gotten to Tabletopia, it's probably not going to hit my shelf if I have to go that far to see if I'm interested in it. All right, and that's our review for Role Player. It's a great game. I'm glad to have it in my collection, and it'll stay there. Thanks.